Yes, people, what's going on? Welcome back to the channel. Hope you guys are all doing well. Now, Manchester United haven't played Premier League football today. They're in action against Nottingham Forest on Sunday. A big game for United. And after the blow that we suffered, we suffered a fair few blows against Sevilla in that we lost Rafael Varane for a couple of weeks. We lost Lisandro Martinez for the rest of the season. Obviously, we lost Bruno Fernandes, who's suspended for that second leg against Sevilla. But in the terms of our top four hopes and trying to cement our position in third, fourth spot and make sure we got Champions League football for next season, that was huge for Manchester United. And it's not something we really want to think about going into the latter stages of the season. But today, without kicking a ball, our top four hopes have been strengthened by our opposition and the teams around us suffering defeat. First up, in the early kickoff, Newcastle lost 3-0 against Aston Villa at Villa Park. Ramsey and Watkins putting on a great show for Aston Villa. Amongst the goals and an assist for themselves, Ollie Watkins getting 2 goals and an assist. Ramsey getting a goal and an assist for himself. Newcastle getting absolutely battered from the start to the end of the game. It wouldn't have been a shock to see if it was 5-0. And that's unlike Newcastle. As much as I wanted to see it, that is unlike them this season. They have been pretty strong defensively and all those kind of things. But then our day got even better as Spurs took on Bournemouth at home. You'd expect, even with Spurs having sacked Conte recently, being in bad form with the caretaker manager, you'd expect Spurs to get a good result against Bournemouth and get a 1-0, 2-0 win. But no, Bournemouth turned up and they left it late to grab a 3-2 win. But they were absolutely fantastic. They were 2-1 ahead up until late as well. Dan Juma getting a goal for Spurs to give them that equaliser and make it 2-2. Then Spurs go very, very close to winning the game through Richarlison. And in the dying stages, Bournemouth hit them on the counter-attack and get that winning goal. A huge win for them in terms of their relegation fight. They're now outside of those relegation spots. But also a huge defeat for Spurs, who could have leapfrogged Manchester United and put a little bit of pressure on us ahead of that game against Forest. Obviously, we got a couple of games in hand on them as well, and they've blown that opportunity, and Newcastle have blown that opportunity to put pressure on us as well. And I know we play Spurs later on in the season, but Newcastle and Spurs come up against each other soon, and with those two teams coming up against each other and one or both of them likely to drop points in that game, they have to, Manchester United could be in for a great couple of weeks. But we have to make these results count by going to the City Ground and beating Nottingham Forest, and that's not going to be an easy place to go and win. So we can't take our eyes off the ball. Obviously, we've still lost Varane, we've still lost Martinez, but those results were absolutely massive for Man United today. You look at the top four at the moment, as it stands, 30 games played, Newcastle are in third with 56 points and 24 plus goal difference. The goal difference is what sets us apart from these teams, but if we win our games in hand, we won't need goal difference to separate us. United have 29 games played and are on 56 points with a goal difference of 7. Now, obviously, our goal difference nowhere near theirs, but win our game in hand, we're 3 points clear of Newcastle and we'll be in third spot. That game in hand coming up against Forest. Then Spurs are in 5th. They are on 53 points after 31 games played with a goal difference of 8. And when you look at that, when you look at where Spurs are, and 1 minute, my phone's just decided to close the league table for me. But when you look at where Spurs are, 3 points behind United. United have 2 games in hand on them. They're 3 points behind Newcastle. Newcastle have a game in hand on them. Spurs are really doing their utmost as it stands to put themselves out of that top 4 contention, but there's still a long way to go. And if Spurs beat Newcastle and then beat United, and those are their next 2 games, then Spurs will be looking good for that top 4. So a lot can change over the next couple of weeks, but Spurs have got Newcastle away, then they've got United at their ground, and if they don't win in either of those games, you're probably counting them out of the top 4, and it strengthens us yet again. These results today were massive for Man United, because as good as Aston Villa are doing, you'd expect Newcastle to go there and get a point, maybe at least. And as bad as Spurs have been performing, you'd expect them to beat Bournemouth, but they haven't. So United need to win that game. To kind of put us in third with a little bit of a cushion from the rest. Aston Villa looking good for European football at the moment. Brighton beating Frank Lampard's Chelsea today as well. Danny Welbeck turning up there and coming in clutch and getting a goal for them. Their winner as well was absolutely unbelievable from Brighton. I forgot the fella's name now, but it was a fantastic goal for Brighton in that game against Chelsea. Fantastic winner, fantastic performance too, because you looked at that game and it looked like Brighton were the team at home that had spent £600 million. Chelsea have spent an awful lot of money. They brought in Frank Lampard. It was Enciso who scored the goal. They brought in Frank Lampard, which was a bizarre decision in itself. You sacked him because he weren't good enough, and now you've brought him in again. There's a lot of players there that were there when he got sacked. What kind of mental decision is that? They brought him in. They've lost 3 on the spin. They got Real Madrid coming up at Stamford Bridge. They're probably going to put them to the sword again today. You look at these stats in this game today. They had 40% possession at home, and I imagine a lot of that possession came when Brighton were ahead in the game, because I watched the game up until Brighton were 2-1, and then I put the Spurs game on, and Brighton were absolutely battering them. They had the game in control. They had 26 attempts on goal to Chelsea's 8. And I'm actually worried about Brighton. I know we're laughing at Chelsea getting battered by Brighton today. I'm worried about Brighton. Coming, up, we've got them at Wembley. We've got them at the Amex. In a league game, it's going to be, a tricky tie for Manchester United. But again, those results have helped us a bit. But we need to capitalise by beating Nottingham Forest. And if United can beat Forest, create that cushion. Next week, there's Newcastle, Tottenham. Fingers crossed that's a draw. Both teams drop points while we're in a semi-final, hopefully beating Brighton and trying to, pop their balloon a little bit and dent their season a little bit as well. And then the following week, Newcastle go to Everton, who are in a relegation battle, and Spurs play United. So if we can beat Forest, beat Spurs, I know we've got to do that, but it's doable, even with the injuries that we have. And I'll give you my suggested 11, even with those injuries. And, Newcastle potentially drop points against Spurs, potentially against Everton. Could be looking good, but got to do it first. And I don't know where this confidence is coming from, because after the game against Sevilla, I was down in the dumps. Lisandro Martinez being out for Man United, huge. Rafael Varane being out for Man United, huge. Hopefully, we can get him back for that cup semi-final. Obviously, that's probably touch and go for them. Maybe you're getting him back for Brighton away, Villa as well. We've got coming up. So maybe we get him back for those league games. But Lisandro Martinez being out for the rest of the campaign is a huge blow. One thing that hopefully helps us is the fact that we got Casemiro and Eriksen back. So the midfield in front of the defence should be quite strong. And hopefully we can get Luke Shaw back. Malasia's performance against Sevilla was poor, which kind of rings some alarm bells, but it'd be nice to be able to even play Luke Shaw alongside Varane when Varane's back. At the weekend against Forest, we're probably going to be going with Maguire and Lindelof. Hopefully they can get us through that game. With Casemiro and Eriksen sit in front of them though, maybe you see Wan-Bissaka. Hopefully Luke Shaw's back, but if not, you're going to see Malacia play. And Casemiro can hopefully babysit that defence, because I don't have much confidence in Harry Maguire, to be totally honest with you. And we will miss Lisandro Martinez and Rafael Varane. But Forest is a game that we should be winning, even with a second string team. But those injuries are huge. Going to Sevilla next week as well, a massive game. Obviously, the first half performance against them gives you hope, because when we played with Anthony Martial, if Rashford's back, you play with Sancho or Anthony as well. You have that midfield in there. Of course, Bruno's going to be a miss, but you've got Casemiro, Sabitzer, Eriksen. We can still play a strong team. It's whether that defence can get through it. So I still have hopes, but the defence without Martinez and without Varane, it's a big miss. Those results today in the league, massive help for us, hopefully. And let's see what happens. But yeah, thank you for tuning in. Make sure you're keeping it locked. Like, comment, share, and subscribe as well. And if you're still watching and you play Super 6, make sure you join us on the club in our league. It's Club S6 is the league code. That's CLUBS for Super and 6. So join the club league if you can. We're giving away £100 voucher for classic football shirts every single round if you finish top of our table in that round. And obviously you got a chance to win £250,000 as well. So join us in the Club Super 6 League. But until next time, thank you for tuning in. Our reaction to the Forest game tomorrow. Until next time, I've been AdamMcKola. I'm out of here.